thank you for taking this journey with me. I'm 25 years in my career, and I'm taking some time to reflect back and do a little retrospective of all the families that have been a part of my life. And we're all in this really actually small community. And so I'm just looking back and thinking about, what have we learned and what can we share with new families, new therapists, new educators. And one of the things that I came across is this article that really, it only came out in 2018, which is not long ago, where as practitioners, and I'm a BCBA, but as a therapist and a practitioner, we're finally saying, hey, why don't we ask parents, what are the indicators of progress and outcomes for your children? Now, that's new in our field. Normally we come in and say, hey, we're going to tell you what to do as parents, and we're going to dictate what you should do. And you all know your children best. And I know that Melanie is not on the autism spectrum. She has a unique diagnosis, but your journey has been really similar to a lot of families I know, and to mine and Bill's own journey. So would you mind taking a few minutes to tell us about when Melanie was born, and the diagnosis she was given, and what that felt like at that moment?
So Melanie was born with something called Sturge-Weber syndrome, and it's a neurological condition. How it presents itself is usually a portwine birthmark. And so she had it just kind of over the eye, and the doctor said, hey, you know what, we're just going to do a little test here. And we just thought it was a birthmark. And this birthmark is representative of disorganized blood vessels. And so typically those blood vessels present itself on the brain. And as you can imagine, the word disorganization is what is, it's representative of what's happening in the brain. And so it can present with seizures, strokes. There's a huge spectrum of what can happen and what cannot. And I think that was the hardest thing, was one doctor was like, well, we're just going to have to do a hemispherectomy, and we're going to have to take out that damaged part of the brain. And so that whole thing was very overwhelming. And so luckily we followed the advice of the neurologist, who looked at her and said, I see a light in her eye, and I don't think she needs a hemispherectomy. And we stuck with him, and thankfully so. And we didn't know what to expect. So that was the hardest part. And, I think having a child with a rare disease can be very lonely, because you don't have a community for you. That was, this was 25 years ago, when the internet was just starting up, and they didn't have communities, they didn't have found websites, so everything we had to kind of just rely on our doctor, and that was very difficult.
There's so much to your story, and I think we'll have to do this again and hear the full journey. It's a good thing you did look 25 years ahead, because as I've been interviewing and talking with families, the top things parents are all saying as I'm going across this lifespan is, despite what doctor said, families want their children to be healthy, which I know you're a constant fighter for Melanie in her health base. And the fact that she's at Orange Theory going with her dad, and I know on Facebook, she always posts her splat points and what she's done, so which is incredible. You want your daughter to be happy. You want her to be safe and as independent as possible, and have a tribe. And I know, because we're friends, and we get to go out and have dinner and cocktails and laugh at our journeys together, that Melanie is independent. She is living on her own right now. And so what I wanted to do is ask you some questions about that. Given where you started and now where she is today, I know she recently moved out into her own apartment. And how did you know that she was ready? Like, what made you decide that she was ready to move out? Like, what were those indicators from a parent perspective?
Oh, well, she was going on apartment.com every day. Her obsession, when she just makes up her mind about something, it is, you just say uncle after a while. But, I think her motivation at probably starting when she was 22, maybe, yeah, I would say 22, we started prepping her younger sister for going away to college.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the future all the time. It dominated our lives the whole year of just the process. And I think that was a moment of time for her that started thinking about her future. And her sister, I think, kind of propelled her into thinking bigger for herself. So it was kind of done for us. We didn't have to say, hey, look at, wouldn't that be cool? She was so determined, and we just kind of went along with it because resisting it was not going to work. And I think also I wanted to see a future for Bob and I together without our kids. Like, wouldn't that be interesting? Yeah. And so, because we need respite, we need that time. And Melanie has always, she's very responsible. She has a worry trait to her. So I knew that she, I felt that she would be okay. We've done adulting for a while. She does her own laundry. She can meal prep. She works out. She knows how to use Uber. I think she was so ready that she's also very much of a go on Google and research everything and research different areas. So that made it easy for us. The other thing that I think was really helpful was occasionally we were having to take trips out of state, myself, Bob, and Steffi. And even one time we went to Colombia, just us three, and left Melanie at home for the week and had friends and family check in on her. But I think that is a great way to start that transition.
How many years do you think you spent prepping for the moment when she would move out?
I really feel we didn't prep. I felt it was more like, look, if we can get her to sort her whites and her colors, stuff, like that was a measure of success. And then we could go and do this. And it wasn't like we were strategic. You get fatigued as a parent, always trying to figure it out. And and then you feel guilty if you forgot something to teach them. And so I think that sometimes you just have to make it up as you go along. And I think, but we did do things, to make sure that she could be as independent as possible. We just, with a lot of these kids, their brain is changing differently than a typical child. And Melanie has a unique syndrome that the brain is changing, and we've read a lot about plasticity, and so we are open to all the different possibilities. So we didn't close ourselves off to the idea that she would be on her own. But we just, we expect a certain amount of responsibility in our home. And you have to, for me, I had to remind myself to not fall into I'll do it myself, it'll be easier. And that is something that would, occasionally just Bob and I would be so tired, like, oh, just do it yourself. We'll just do it ourselves because we don't want to teach her. We're tired. It'll be easier. We don't have to explain. And then, because we'll probably have to redo it anyway. So I think that was one thing, is that I do wish I had pushed myself to not let that set in.
Well, honestly, one of the things that I know that I admire about you, which you and Bob, which made me want to include you in my conversations, is because you always expected her. You know, of course, you're going to give up. You know, you're going to do it yourself sometime, but
Right.
you always expected Melanie to be the best she could be. You didn't ever discount her, and you've always expected her to have to, you know, if she wants to, if she, I know she loves coffee, so she has to learn to make her own coffee. And if, you know, she loves to shop and have clothes. And so if she's going to do that, she's got to learn how to, you know, find her own clothes, make her own meals. You know, if she wants to do something, she has to learn how to do it herself. And you guys have been pretty relentless in making sure that happened over the years.
Well, I think, I mean, you have to do it sometime. You know, if you don't, it's going to get harder and harder as they get older.
I love that you guys have a tribe. I always see your pictures on Facebook of like all your tribe that you have.
You know, you have to you have to reach out to family and educate them too, because people are afraid. You know, people are afraid of what they don't understand, and they really see Melanie just as typical as anyone else in our family. They've seen her, you know, get her apartment and do a lot of things, you know, on her own. She Ubers, so it's inspiring, and I feel she's so inspiring because I see, you know, these typical kids just kind of flake off in school, or, you know, they don't even try. And I think Melanie has to try twice as hard as some of her, even some relatives. And I just have a lot of respect for that she, I mean, honestly, any employer would be lucky to have her, because she knows what it's like to work hard, and she doesn't expect things to come easy. And she's just very determined.
So she's been in her apartment for a month now?
Since August 1st.
Wow.
So, yeah. Wow.
What are things that you're supporting with her now?
She's doing everything pretty much on her own. We do grocery shopping on Monday.
Nice.
But otherwise, you know, I went in one day just for deep cleaning, and she had really done a great job. So she, you know, I think too, maybe she sees when she doesn't know how to approach something, you know, I think she just tries to remember what we've done. And so she tries to make her bed every day. You know, she did that at home too. But I think as far as supporting, we do a lot of, we have a family text, so we text each other all throughout the day. We'll FaceTime. FaceTime is such a great tool because, you know, if she's in her kitchen and not sure if, you know, the oven, or, you know, like last week, her dryer wasn't working. And so we can FaceTime her and say, hey, push that button. Or so some of those are great tools, I think, because, you know, you feel this like, oh gosh, I need to be there. And but if you can teach them to use FaceTime all the time, or YouTube is great too, that can teach you a lot of things.
You know, technology is so helpful in independence these days.
It is. It's great.
So one of the things I'm doing in all of my conversations is highlighting the families, because you and Bob have been warriors. You said that word. You've been relentless. You're active in not only your own community, but other communities of families. And I just wanted to highlight that Melanie wouldn't be where she was if she didn't have parents like you doing that work. And this is a Temple Grandin quote that I love that applies to children on the autism spectrum, she said, but I think it applies to all children, is you've got to keep children engaged with the world. You cannot let them tune out. And kudos to you and Bob, because you've always done that. And I admire you, and I'm so pleased to know you and have you a part of my journey across the spectrum of my career and my community. So I just wanted to say kudos to you and Bob And thank you so much for doing this, having this conversation with me.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. And, I feel like we're still figuring it out. And if, I can be there to help someone else. And it's also nice talking to an expert, just because I feel like you see me and and that is so, you can't measure that. You can't even put that into words. Sometimes there's kind of this unspoken, kind of a tacit understanding when you meet other families of children with disabilities. It's like you get each other and you don't even know each other.
Yeah.
And I think even, talking to people in your field, it's reassuring. And it's just knowing that people are there to have your back and that they get it, instead of, I have lots of friends who don't have, to deal with these challenges and to try to explain, or sometimes it's just nice to find a tribe that is facing similar circumstances.
Agreed. Thank you.
You're so welcome.